Welcome back to History of Simple Things. Today's topic comes from one of our viewers, Samuel Gonzalez. Thanks for the suggestion. You asked, why do people wear black to funerals? If you've ever attended a funeral, you've probably noticed something almost everyone has in common. They're wearing black. Black suits, black dresses, black ties, black shoes. It's such a familiar sight that most of us rarely stop to question it. But why black? Why not white, blue, or some other color? This long-standing tradition didn't appear overnight, and it's not even practiced the same way everywhere in the world. So how did black become the color of mourning in many cultures? Stick around as we explore the surprising history and meaning behind this custom, right here on History of Simple Things. Long before modern funerals existed, many ancient civilizations had special clothing for mourning. In ancient Rome, for example, mourners wore a dark toga called a toga pulla. Unlike the bright white togas worn during everyday life, this darker garment signaled grief and respect for the dead. Dark clothing was practical, too. Mourning rituals often lasted for long periods, and darker fabrics were easier to maintain during extended ceremonies and gatherings. More importantly, the visual contrast between everyday clothing and mourning clothing made it immediately clear that someone was grieving. Other cultures had similar ideas, although the colors varied. In some ancient societies, people wore dark gray, brown, or other muted tones rather than pure black. What mattered most was the symbolism. The clothing reflected sorrow and seriousness. Over time, these early mourning customs laid the groundwork for the funeral traditions many cultures follow today. Black gradually became the dominant mourning color in Europe during the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. One reason was symbolism. Across many cultures, black has long been associated with darkness, night, and the absence of light. Because of this, it naturally became linked with loss, grief, and the unknown. Black clothing also communicated seriousness and humility. At funerals, the focus is meant to be on remembering the person who died, not on standing out or drawing attention. Wearing black creates a shared visual tone, quiet, respectful, and subdued. Another factor was practicality and fashion. Black dye eventually became easier to produce for fabrics, and black clothing began appearing more often in formal wardrobes. By the time European societies developed structured mourning traditions, black was already widely recognized as a serious and dignified color. The custom of wearing black to funerals became especially strict during the 19th century, particularly in Britain during the reign of Queen Victoria. When Queen Victoria's husband, Prince Albert, died in 1861, she entered a long period of mourning and wore black clothing for the rest of her life. Her influence was enormous, and mourning fashion quickly spread throughout Britain and much of Europe. During the Victorian era, mourning clothing followed detailed rules. Widows often wore full black outfits made from dull fabrics like crepe for months or even years. Jewelry was minimal, and bright colors were avoided. After a period of deep mourning, people slowly transitioned into lighter mourning colors like gray, lavender, or mauve. These strict customs eventually relaxed over time, but they helped cement the idea that black was the appropriate color for funerals. Today, wearing black at funerals is less about strict rules and more about symbolism. First, black represents respect. It signals that the event is solemn and that attendees are there to honor the person who passed away. Second, black symbolizes unity. When everyone wears similar subdued colors, it creates a shared atmosphere of mourning. No one person stands out, which keeps attention focused on remembrance rather than appearance. Third, black conveys emotional restraint. Funerals are deeply emotional events, and the simplicity of black clothing reflects the seriousness of the moment. Even when people don't consciously think about these meanings, the symbolism still shapes how the tradition is understood. Although black is common in many Western countries, it's far from universal. In several Asian cultures, white is traditionally the color of mourning. For example, funerals in countries like China and India often feature white garments instead of black. In these traditions, white represents purity, the cycle of life, or the soul's transition to another state. In some African cultures, funerals can involve a wide range of colors depending on the region and beliefs. Bright colors may even be worn to celebrate the life of the person who passed away. These differences show that mourning customs are shaped by cultural meaning rather than fixed global rules. Today, funeral dress codes are generally more relaxed than in the past. While black is still considered the safest and most respectful choice, it's no longer a strict requirement in many places. Some families encourage attendees to wear colors that reflect the personality of the person who died. For example, guests might wear a favorite sports team's color, a bright shade the person loved, or even themed clothing. Celebrations of life ceremonies which focus on remembering joyful memories sometimes intentionally avoid traditional mourning colors altogether. Even so, black remains the most common choice because it still communicates respect and quiet solidarity. Ultimately, the tradition of wearing black to funerals isn't really about fashion at all. It's about shared understanding. Clothing becomes a silent language. Without saying a word, people communicate sympathy, respect, and support for those who are grieving. Whether someone chooses black, white, or another meaningful color, the deeper purpose remains the same, honoring a life that is ended and supporting the people left behind. So the next time you see a crowd dressed in black at a funeral, remember that the tradition isn't just about color. It's about centuries of cultural history and a simple, powerful way humans express grief together. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.